Alana, how are you?
Kirsten, I'm very well, thanks.
Do you know what we just sounded like? Have you seen that interview with some chick and Meghan Markle? And she's like, "How are you?" That's what we just sounded like.
Cheap.
How
That's
embarrassing.
embarrassing.
Okay. If
Okay.
you just heard that, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Let's start it again.
Starting again. Alana, how
Hello.
are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. We are recording this late in the afternoon. So, listeners, I can't guarantee that what we say will make any sense, but you know what? We're going to go with it.
Yeah.
This whole chat came about because Alana did a beautiful post. I mean, you guys go crazy for her content, and I know why. It's always just so reassuring and calming. But ages ago, like I'm seriously thinking over a year ago, Alana put something out there on shame and how shame is really important to heal within itself, but how having shame around healing is like not helpful, obviously.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about shame and how we all hold it and how we can't transmute it. But before we get into that, how have you been? What's been going on with you? Lots has been going on with you, but
Always lots going on. I was in Bali for a short time, which was fun. And now I'm just back at it. I'm just back in the routine, just working, taking care of my boys, taking care of myself, chugging along.
it's definitely the chugging along type of year.
Hmm.
And whenever we chat, we're both kind of like, what's going on? Yeah, not like nothing, everything. I don't really know. And I
Yeah.
think those years are okay. Like it's okay just to be plodding along, just to be doing your thing.
Right, right. Because that's what life mostly is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chugging along. And sometimes I think change happens so incrementally and slowly that you don't even realize it's happening until you look back and you go, hey, I'm in a completely different place than I was 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. Um, so I'm happy to chug. It
Yeah,
works for me.
exactly.
Works
So
for my
let's pull a
nerves.
card. So I shuffled before we came on, and the card is my least favorite word, manifestation. Do you want to take it away with this one? What are you feeling?
Manifestation. Well, look, I think we're manifesting all the time.
Hmm.
If you're alive, we're energetic beings and we are constantly manifesting. I personally, I don't intentionally manifest anything
Mm.
because I feel like for me, it just feels like it's coming most of the time from the ego and a sense of control. So while I do obviously have desires, I have intentions, I have things that I want to experience, I try to hold that lightly and loosely because I feel like then I'm more open to how that might show up.
I love that. I love that so much because speaking of shame, I think there is so much shame around the idea that we can have what we want if we just want it enough, if we just try hard enough. And the reality is that there is so much complexity at play always. And I think, like the iceberg, we can see 1% of life and it's unfolding.
Yes.
And I think that's why I'm so anti the manifestation rhetoric of just do these things, or I'll give you the formula to have the dream life. And especially in business, to have the business that creates all this money with ease, and you can sit on a beach and have this, and then your perfect partner. Like, we're better than that. We're wiser than that. And so to desire, I think, is of the soul, is of the heart,
Mm.
because we're here to have all the beautiful human experiences and we see things that we might want in our experience. But you're right, the more loosely we hold them,
Yes.
I think the greater capacity we have to experience far more than we could ever hope to with a formula to get,
Yeah.
which is why I work with the moon, because it's like we're just constantly evolving. I think if you're evolving, you're always attracting new experiences and people and alignment into your life, which is actually ironic because it's actually how we reconnected personally through a moon circle that I was hosting. And, if I'd held on to my old life I was actually holding on to a big fear that someone from my old life, as in my career, would find me doing this work. And my fear became a reality when you looked at me when you walked into the room and said, "Did you used to work at blah, blah, blah school?" I was like, oh, my whole insides just collapsed. And I went, "Here it is. Here's the moment." And I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
And you were
The fact
so
that it was a
warm.
moon
And it
circle
was a
that we
moon
met
circle.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were so warm. And I said, "Oh, what brings you here?" And you said, "Oh, I'm a hypnotherapist." And I was like, "Whoa, we
Hmm.
would never have had that conversation in the old context. Yet here we are."
Right.
And
Right.
and so beautifully like connected now in our work and personal lives. And I think that's
Yes.
what you mean by hold it open, hold it loose.
Totally. And, the other thing I think about this manifestation rhetoric, this idea that you can have whatever you want if you just align yourself and if you just do X, Y, Z, is that it sets up these expectations on what your life should look like,
Mm,
on how it should be or how it could be if only you were doing the right thing.
mm,
And I think then if you're experiencing something other than that, you don't have the career you want, the amount of money that you want, you don't have the body that you want, you don't have the partner that you want, there can come this sense of failure, this sense that there's something wrong with you. Why haven't I been able to accomplish these things that other people have, or that people are telling me that I can have? That I'm an unlimited being and all of this, which of course it's true in one sense, but that is only a part of the picture. And I think sometimes it doesn't allow space for our humanity and our humanness and the messiness that life is and the messiness that growth is. And what I certainly see in my practice is, people will come in and they come because they've got a particular problem, they've got an issue that they want help with. And for some people, the very act of reaching out for
mm,
help, for admitting that I can't do this on my own,
mm,
that itself can trigger so much shame
mm,
and such a feeling of weakness and such a feeling that there's something wrong with me, particularly if it's a long-standing issue. It's one they've had for a long time, or it's one that is of a particular nature that is embarrassing to them.
mm,
You know, Sometimes someone will come and, a lot of my clients are women who are very successful, they're intelligent, they're conscious, they're aware, they're doing the work, they are spiritual people, yet they may have a challenge that they just can't seem to shake. For example, in relationships, keeping it on attracting a particular man who, takes advantage of them or treats them poorly or whatever it might be. It could be a pattern that they've been running for a number of years. And the conscious part of them, the intelligent side of them, knows that this is no good for them, tries to get out of it, wants to get out of it, and yet somehow they find themselves back in it. And so it's this sense of like, what's happening?
mm,
The frustration of why can't I change this? And when you have been wanting to change something and you just feel like you haven't been able to, this can really trigger a sense of shame.
mm,
Something must be wrong with me. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be experiencing this thing. And so shame can add on another layer on top of whatever it is you're experiencing. Shame is a heaviness, it's an embarrassment. The effect of shame is that it makes us want to hide certain parts of ourselves. Shame always implies judgment of some sort. We are judging ourselves, and that can result in so much self-loathing, which is really the opposite of what we need in order to heal. The number one way to release yourself from shame is to approach your most tender and vulnerable parts with a sense of curiosity and compassion. To really look with such tender-heartedness as you would a small child,
Mm.
because those parts of you that are struggling, that are needy, it's not the intelligent part of you, it's not the adult, mature part of you. In those moments, it is a hurt child. It is a part of you that doesn't know how else to get what it wants. And so, in order for us to understand that part more, we need to approach it very gently, softly, with curiosity and compassion. And then that part starts to reveal itself more. We start to understand more what's underneath the behavior. And it then becomes much easier for us to start to integrate that at a deeper level. It's not just the intellectual understanding that creates change. Intellectual understanding, a conscious understanding of what's going on, cause and effect, is useful, but it tends not to be the thing that creates transformation. Transformation happens at the level of feeling. It's very much an experiential thing. So the best time to heal anything is when it's active within you. So when a pattern is triggered, when you're feeling those emotions, if you can pause long enough to just drop in, not even trying to change anything, not even trying to stop it, but just for a moment to get curious about what is going on inside of me? Where can I feel this? What does this remind me of? Just asking some of these questions in order to get a bit more data, to try and turn off that judgmental voice that might be, trying to criticize because once again you're doing this or you're feeling that. If we can just put that to the side and drop into the body and make it a really feeling experience, maybe touching the part of you that is experiencing the particular emotion, it's really going to help to begin that process of deeper healing. I feel like I just went on a rant.
I think that's the end of the episode. Thanks for coming. No, that's just all. It's all so beautiful. And there's so much to pick up on there. Uh, Yes, the absolutely. The portal to healing is acceptance that there is something to be healed. And I think that you reminded me in that moment of the fact that we put so much pressure on ourselves to be adult, assuming that adult means we know a lot or we should know how to navigate life. And I think one of the most beautiful memes that has come up recently that I've noticed on social media has been the meme of like people taking videos of their mum just doing life and saying, remember, this is her first time at life too.
Yeah,
And at what stage do you allow your lens to shift from adulting does not mean anything other than you've been around a while?
right.
And it's okay to not know how to do things.
Yeah,
And when it comes to shame, how would you suggest or how would you guide people who are maybe like they're so overcome with the shame that A, they don't even let themselves feel it,
mm-hmm.
but B, that shame does block them to the pursuit of their own expansion and healing and compassion? Because I think the barrier to entry for evolving and transformation or the price of entry, I think is navigating potential shame.
Yeah. So I think often the first step is humility,
Mm.
that we need to admit that we're all out of answers. We've tried and tried and tried, and we haven't been able to change it, accept it. Sometimes we do need to reach that point where we're on our knees
Mm.
to finally be humble enough to surrender Sometimes it is that cracking open that's required in order for us to be open enough to receive something different. Um, I think the other piece of it is understanding that it's okay to be human.
Mm.
You know, you like where did we get this idea that we need to somehow be perfect and have everything figured out? Because that's the initial problem that we face, that we somehow have this idea that it's a weakness that we don't have it all figured out. And we compare ourselves to other people. And of course, we compare our messy inside to other people's highlight reel. And we always feel that we fall short. So
Mm.
there's a shame in that. So we need to unpick the assumptions that we've made about life, unpick the assumptions that you've made about yourself, because a lot of them are going to be false. That is the cage that you have created for yourself. So start to question the beliefs that you have about what is possible for you. Make a list of all the things that you're ashamed of and actually dig into it a little bit more.
Mm.
Investigate them. Often we don't investigate the assumptions that we make. And so they're just all running in the background. But if we just took a bit of time to unpick them, unravel them, is this
Mm.
actually true? Is it possible that I'm being a little bit too hard on myself in certain aspects? Is there another way that I can interpret what happened to me? Is there another meaning that I can give this situation? You need to take ownership for how you are viewing your own life. And if you found yourself in a box, in a cage of shame, well, only you can get yourself out. And that is where, we need to start taking our own power back. Where is your power in any particular circumstance? It is always within your own perception of things. So if you can alter your perceptions, even slightly, you create a bit more space because shame can begin to feel like a room that's getting smaller and smaller,
Mm.
and suddenly you can't even move.
Mm.
So, we want to start pushing those walls back, creating some more space. And one of the ways you do that is by questioning the assumptions that you've made. Um, you know, we always have a choice about how we view the things that happen to us.
Mm.
So that would be the place that I would suggest people start.
Can shame, do you think, in light of that, ever be helpful and like healthy?
Oh,
Because
yes.
I was just thinking, like, as you were speaking there, the difference between holding shame and being ashamed.
Uh-huh.
And maybe we've like merged both of them, but I think they're two very different things. And maybe the shame that I hold for different areas of my life at different times, maybe that was the healthiest thing for me to hold for my own sense of accountability and alignment.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because there are definitely circumstances where the message of shame is that you have done something that's worthy of being ashamed of.
Yeah.
If you've violated your own values, if you've violated your own sense of decency and standards, then it's natural that you would feel shame. If you've hurt someone, if you've done something dishonest, then you'll feel a sense of shame because you have acted in a way that does not align with who you really are. So that's the kind of shame that, yes, you need to look at, and you need to take the message of that to do better. So I'm glad you brought that up because, we want to make a distinction there between healthy shame and the shame which comes from, as we were discussing previously, which is more this self-imposed, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me, I'm flawed type feeling. Um, yeah, so there's definitely a difference. If you do acknowledge and you do realize that part of the reason you feel ashamed is because you did something that you're not proud of. Well, what do you do then? Because you don't want to just carry that around as if you're the worst person in the world.
Mm,
So that needs to be processed. So feeling the shame of that, feeling where that lives in your body, allowing it to move through you so you're not burying it, is the way that we process emotions in a healthy way. Then the decision is up to you. What are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to make amends somehow? Are you going to apologize? Is there something that you can do to rectify the situation? And maybe not. In which case, the only thing that you really can do is then make a vow to yourself that I'm not going to do that again,
mm,
that I'm going to learn from this, because this is, how we learn and grow
mm.
and evolve. We're constantly making mistakes. So, if you feel ashamed of something, rectify it if you can, learn from it so you don't do it again. But then move on from it, then let it go. You don't need to carry it around like a sack of bricks for the rest of your life. That's my take on it.
How do you put the sack of bricks down? I've been, not accused is the wrong word. Maybe a
Hmm.
very harsh truth has been reflected back to me in the past where I am really hard on myself.
Hmm.
And that's probably a lot of conditioning and whatever, but how do you put that that backpack down? Like it's hard
Well,
sometimes just to forget it and to be that compassionate with yourself.
so you notice it every time it comes up and you make a deliberate decision to let it go. It's not something that you put down once and then it's gone. It
Mm,
tends to be something that will come back. But if you understand that, there's a difference between who you are and what you've done,
mm,
that in itself is a key distinction. And when we get in trouble is when we, equate who we are with what we've done. Then, you can't ever take it back. But if you understand, okay, that thing that I did maybe or how I was in the past, that doesn't need to define me because it's not who I am. And I can choose in any moment who I show up as. So when we feel these things coming up, if we can be very conscious and aware of it, just as soon as we become aware of it, we're not always aware, but at some point you become aware, oh, that's the thing that I've been carrying. It's a matter of feeling it, taking a breath, setting that intention to let it go. And maybe you feel a sense of relief immediately, and maybe you don't.
mm.
And that's okay. Sometimes we just need to sit with it for a little bit. Sometimes there is a bit of a heaviness as we're going about our day. But again, how do you interpret what the heaviness means? Is it okay that there's a little bit of heaviness there?
Mm.
And maybe if we don't make it mean more than it has to mean, well, then it doesn't affect us as much as it perhaps used to.
You've talked to the aspect of shame in terms of the result of something that we may have done or experienced. But I want to tap on a type of shame that I don't think I've ever heard anyone really publicly talk about. So it's up to us. Let's do it. But something that we touched on at the start of this conversation about the shame around the things that we desire and are not coming into our experience. I work with a lot of women who really struggle to get pregnant.
Mhm.
I am, and I have many beautiful friends who desire really robust love
Mhm.
and to be met in a romantic connection in a way that fulfills them that have not or are currently not experiencing that. And I think there is this silent shame, especially for women, because we work so hard at our lives and ourselves. And you hear it all the time, these amazing women that want certain things, but it just doesn't happen. And there's shame in that.
Yeah.
So let's talk to the shame that of the things that we want that we don't have and feeling that shame around that.
Yes. I mean, the first thing that comes to me on that level is that there's some deeply embedded cultural conditioning.
Yeah.
We have been conditioned consciously and unconsciously to measure ourselves in terms of having what we want, having this life where you've been chosen by this amazing man, and now you have the white picket fence and the big
Mm,
house, 2.3 children. And, so when you don't get it, it's like, hey,
mm,
I've been shortchanged, or,
mm,
or that you perceive that other people are judging you,
mm,
that people are looking at you and thinking, well, there must be something wrong with you because you don't have a partner, or what's wrong with your body that you weren't able to get pregnant.
mm.
So sometimes there is that judgment that we perceive is coming from others, that really is this sort of deep cultural conditioning that we get. But also I
It's
think,
almost like you're holding the cultural conditioning and trying to like protect yourself and not fight against it, but like survive that whilst also holding your own internalized shame. So it feels like a double whammy
yeah,
almost.
yeah. And I think it's a very human thing also to want love and intimacy and companionship and to have a family. You know, I mean, not all of that is cultural, a lot of it is biological
Mm,
too. So, you know, how do we still find a sense of peace and um, contentment in the absence of those things that we want? Well, I think then we come up against this sort of conundrum of, what can we control and what can we not control? And if we've done everything that we know how to do and it hasn't worked out, what options are we then left with? And to my mind, it needs to be a sense of acceptance, not acceptance that this is never going to happen, but just a sense of acceptance that right now it's not here. Right now it's not here. I wish it was here, but the reality is that it's not. And so, how am I going to sit in the space of the absence of what I want? Is there something else that's here instead? Is there something else that brings a sense of peace? Is there something else that brings a sense of contentment? So that you begin to notice in your life that, okay, I don't have that, but I have an amazing sister, or I love my dog. The
mm.
sun is shining. It's literally a matter of, where are you blessed? Find the blessings so that you are not so focused on what is absent, but on what is there. You know, how can I fill myself in ways that I do have control over?
I think that that's a really big indication for how attached you are and how rigid you are in your ability to access happiness and fulfillment in life when it's really attached to something or an outcome.
Yeah.
When you ask yourself that question, I think it's a very hard but an extremely powerful and liberating question to ask. Like, okay, what if it doesn't happen?
Yeah.
And if you're able to authentically find joy and peace without it, going back to what you said at the beginning, there is so much fluidity
Yes.
in then probably aligning with something or something so much better
Yes.
because you're not as attached. So if that question triggers you, that is a beautiful sign that you've put so many rocks into one bag and you are dragging that around, expecting to make you feel light and happy and at ease and aligned.
Yes.
And you're probably not going to make the best decisions for yourself whilst you're like that.
Yes, exactly. And I think when we are attached to happiness looking a particular way, sometimes we will chase an external structure over an internally aligned situation. So you will marry someone who is not right for you, and deep down you know it, but externally it's going to give you what you think you want. You know, perhaps even people who have babies who maybe deep in their heart don't
Yeah.
necessarily want it,
Yeah.
but they do. And these are things that are difficult to talk about and difficult, for
Mm.
people to admit, but it happens. It
Yeah.
really happens. So I think sometimes we need to understand that just because a life looks a particular way on the outside, it doesn't mean it's going to be aligned for you. Um, things can look all shiny on the outside and it's just a house of cards.
Mm.
It can crumble in moments. So I think definitely understanding that the way that you feel inside of yourself is the most important thing. It's not what it looks like on the outside. Um, and in terms of where your power lies, because that's always the question, like, you know, where are you empowering yourself and where are you disempowering yourself? And when we place our happiness in the hands of things that are outside of ourselves, there is always a sense of disempowerment. You always leave yourself vulnerable because as soon as that goes away, which things can, then you're not happy anymore. So the internal mechanics are where you will find the kind of contentment, the kind of peace, the kind of fulfillment that can't easily be shaken.
And it is possible. Like, I think because we're so conditioned to believe that it's not the source of happiness,
Mm,
um, I'm here to tell you that it's not just possible. I think it's mandatory to a fulfilled life.
yeah.
Um, and any way in which we can teach you or you can cultivate within yourself an anchor point of happiness, a baseline, then you are going to be in your power. So do the things that you love. Be the quirky person that you love to be. Be okay with being different. And any external shame that is projected upon you, be brave enough to let it fall to the ground and not enter your sphere because it has nothing to do with you anyway.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and because you're just worth so much more than the stuff that people say that you should want.
Hmm.
And this is something that I have to actively practice. I mean, I had to actively practice it recently, where there was something that I so desire, and it felt like it was in my hands. It felt like it was in my hands. It was just a matter of time. I was just a conversation away. And I had to get to the point where I realized actually wanting this is hurting me.
Hmm.
Wanting this is, I'm now feeling shame because I don't have it, and people are asking me, how's that situation going? And it's like, oh, you just don't realize the subtlety of the shame in that.
Mm,
And so it's like, oh, you have to realize when what you want is actually hurting you. It's not helping you anymore. And shame is a good portal to do that.
yes.
What would you say to wrap this concept up of shame to anyone that may struggle to connect with it because it's such an intense concept?
Hmm.
Even though we all feel it, I think people are very good at conditioning themselves not to feel it.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone with that is struggling with the intensity of shame, which is ultimately blocking them from that sense of personal empowerment and freedom?
It's something that you can begin to feel into piece by piece,
Mm,
step by step. If there's anything that feels overwhelming, um, just tread gently. Particularly, shame is often a protective mechanism.
mm,
It is a way for you to protect the parts of you that, you know, are vulnerable. And for that reason, you know, shame is all about secrecy and isolation and things that are hidden, which is very difficult to then heal because healing requires openness and connection and bringing things to light. So
mm.
shame is like this wall that you sort of need to chip away at to find what's underneath.
Yeah.
Um, find safe spaces. Do it in a safe space. So whether the safe space is a therapist, whether the safe space is a group, whether the safe space is finding someone who you know has experienced something similar to you and reaching out to them, having a safe space to begin to look at these parts of yourself is going to help you have the courage that you need um, in order to begin to look at it. Um, but don't feel overwhelmed. It's not necessarily Pandora's box. You open it once and everything comes out. You can do it piece by piece in a way that's gentle and is going at a pace that suits you.
As always, thank you so much for your grounded and comforting wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me.